Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
This is our YouTube channel. Glad you're here. Subscribe and give this video a like.
Yep. Check out our podcast as well down below in the description.
Today we're talking about Jim Harbaugh's tenure at Michigan. It's something that actually John and I talk about a lot, just texting or over the course. We're big college football fans. I feel like we talk about Harbaugh's Michigan time a lot, and maybe it's because we covered him when he was in San Francisco with the 49ers. We did a separate video about his time with the 49ers and the healing that can happen now. Also on YouTube, go check that out.
And I also think, though, for a lot of casual sports fans, when it comes to college football, I'd say on the West Coast, college football has become so big over this last, I'd say even like 6 or 7 years. And the Big Ten has played in a lot. Like he's just been Penn State, Iowa, Wisconsin, obviously the Ohio State games. They play in a lot of primetime games where a lot of people are just watching the game on Saturday in California, in Northern California.
Yeah. And countrywide, he was polarizing from the jump, right? He was taking his camps all over the country, and coaches were complaining, and he's just been a story since he took over. The question is he successful at Michigan? I believe he has been successful, John, at Michigan, but as we know, judging a Michigan man's success is not up to the people who don't have skin in the game and don't cry, don't feel pain with every Ohio State loss, and he's lost them all.
Well, I think part of getting him at Michigan was it felt like a coup for them. It was like, God, you idiot Niners, we'll take them in a heartbeat. And it was a very big deal for them to land Jim Harbaugh. And in turn, I think there have been recent examples over these last just 10 years. Saban got to Alabama and relatively quickly had them winning. Urban Meyer got to Florida and boom, won. Felt like Dabo Swinney, it took him a minute, but Clemson was never considered Alabama, Ohio State, Florida, or Michigan, and they started winning huge. And then Urban jumped to Ohio State and started winning big. So I think we view, most people in this country between 30 to old have seen Michigan have a lot of success at different points in our life. And it feels right now they're a really good program. Like you can chalk them up on any given year for 9 or 10 wins. But I think the way we look about his tenure at Michigan is, yeah, they're not going to be in the Big Ten championship, let alone the playoffs. And I think we both agree. We just assumed, I don't know if it was going to happen immediately or even in 2 or 3 years, but Guy, by year 4 and 5, if you would have told me 5 years in, does he have one Big Ten, championship berth, let alone a playoff berth, I would have said, of course he does.
Yeah,
I would have said maybe he doesn't win it, but he's in the mix for a national championship, and he really hasn't been.
I thought he would have been by year 3, and it's crazy because it's not like we haven't seen him win big games before. In the NFL, he went to 3 straight NFC championship games, went to a Super Bowl, was this close to winning a Super Bowl. He's not incapable, but to your point, he hasn't really been close. I thought year 3 at 2 10-win seasons, okay, now it's time. I mean, you look at the stuff on the screen, he's only finished in the top 3 once, and that was a tie in his own division, not his league, in his division, against top 10 teams, including this past season when he went 1-3 against top 10 teams, which includes the lost Alabama in the bowl game. He's 2-12. And the one that always comes up, he's 0-5 to Ohio State. Now, I do think relative to what Michigan had been, he's been successful. Like, before he showed up, they'd lost 10 of their last 11 to Ohio State. So they've been, this thing where he can't beat Ohio State, they've been behind Ohio State for almost 2 decades now.
So they've lost 15 of their last 16 games to Ohio State.
5 straight and 10 of 11 before he showed up.
Wow.
They've been getting their ass kicked.
To me, though, Guy, even if you give them not a pass, but just go, okay, if you are going to get beat, Ohio State has been, wouldn't you say, beside Alabama and Clemson, the 3rd best program. And on a given year, they've been, they won a natty with Urban. They've been the cream of the crop.
Yep.
Last year was a good example of Wisconsin kicks his ass, can't beat Penn State. So it's, okay, you haven't beat them, but is James Franklin beating your ass? Is Paul Chryst and Jim Leonard and what they got going on in Wisconsin, are they a better program than you? Because you go, okay, well, maybe they just have some downturns in recruiting and stuff. They had 10 guys drafted. 10.
Well, he's been a top 25 recruiting class every year. He's been top 5 in the Big Ten every year.
So he's crushing it in recruiting. He's then developing these guys to the league, right? It's one thing to like, God, these guys are recruiting really well and not developing them. That's not the issue because they're getting drafted. They're getting drafted high at all sorts of positions, defensively, offensively, but not the main position, which at one point in time in his career, I don't think anyone would consider him this anymore, but he had the quarterback whisper that kind of only gets a small percentage of people get that. Andy Reid had it for a long time. Holmgren, Sean Payton's kind of had it. Arians, like when you give it to some, like even like Saban, Urban, you would say Dabo, they don't necessarily, Dabo maybe a little bit more can identify him. It feels like, I mean, Trevor Lawrence now, Deshaun, Dabo's hot. You would say that, well, Jim, he's not even picking the right guys.
Right. To me, to get that quarterback whisper, you got to be the guy that's got your hand on the shoulder pad of the quarterback during timeouts talking in his ear, right? And that's...
Will you not give it to Dabo as much, even though he's hit on his last two quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, he's done a great job with quarterbacks. I don't give him whisperer, right? That's not his position. But
like Lincoln Riley's probably a better example in college football.
I would say Lincoln's a great example. I mean, Harbaugh had Andrew Luck.
Leach, pretty good example, too.
Leach is great. But Harbaugh went Andrew Luck to the resurrection of – so he goes number one pick to the resurrection of a number one pick to taking over the league with Colin Kaepernick, right? Like that's what it looked like at the time. When he left,
it happened, you know.
Yeah, but you're right. It happened to happen on paper. When he left the Niners after 4 years, it was 8-8, and it was like, wait, this is 8-8. If that's your worst year, you're in great shape. The Niners would argue the relationships are deteriorating. This is not going to get better. This is going to get worse. And I do think if I'm going to play devil's advocate to my side, which thinks he's done on the balance a good job given where Michigan was when he showed up. Maybe some people would argue, well, he won 10 and 10 and then 8 and then 10, but it's not getting better. Why isn't it getting better? Why don't we feel like we're turning a corner or we're any closer to the CFP?
Why don't you belong when you step on the field with Alabama and Ohio State? And you don't have to win. You don't belong. And
I think it goes back to what you said before, though. Why is it that it feels like Wisconsin and Penn State and they need some time, but Minnesota's made a move. Why does it feel like they are closer than we are? I think that's.
Iowa's been playing pretty good football. Here's another thing, Guy. The quarterback position in college, it comes in all shapes and sizes, right? Yeah. It's not just you don't just need to land the 5-star guy, right? Oregon finds Justin Herbert, the Jordan Loves, and the historically Derek Carrs and Jimmy Garoppolo's always exist. You can get the premium guy like a Trevor Lawrence or a Justin Fields.
I mean, Ohio State's had a really good run.
They have. It'd be one thing if, like, you know what? He landed this one guy, a little under the radar, Keaton Slovis, a Mac Jones. Like, even if it wasn't a Tua or a Trevor. But it feels like he's had to fill his hole with free agency, like these guys that are transferring, Wilton Spate, Shea Patterson, and then it goes.
Was Jake Rudock, did he have to pull, was Jake there when he got there? Then he had the O'Korn guy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you don't even need to be Andy Reid to just watch his team and go, why is this quarterback not that good? Again, I'm not looking for him to have Tua, but why can't he find he found this guy under the radar, city of Ohio, his Justin Herbert or his Jordan Love. It feels like always every time a guy goes into the portal, well, Harbaugh has to dip his hands. Well, Jim, can't you find a scholarship quarterback at 18 years old? And he did it once with Andrew Luck, but now it's kind of looking in his time with Stanford and now his time in Michigan, he struggles signing a high school quarterback that is going to be an NFL player, which all of his competition is kind of consistently doing now.
So, but what's hard about it is, as part of me thinks maybe he's better suited for the NFL because you can lose 2 or 3 or 4. Like, you don't have to be buttoned down every week to have a chance to win a Super Bowl, right? Like, you can lose 4 or 5 games and still have a chance to win you can lose as many as you want as long as you make the playoffs, depending on your division. But he won a bunch of big games on the road, and he did it sometimes with this quarterback who at the time is what everyone's happy to have now. Colin Kaepernick, you're happy to have that guy in college now, right? He took him to the NFL when nobody was going to consider playing a guy like that in the NFL.
Well, I think
I know he's open-minded to that kind of player.
In the NFL, when you have a really good defense, which he's continued to have in college, you're
And he
going
had
to
a really
play
good OC.
you're going to play in lower scoring games. I think sometimes in college, and this is why he went and got Gaddis last year to spread it out. There is a balance of there are going to be several games a year where we're going to have to score 30 plus.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you have his Michigan level defense in, like, let's say he could put the team he's had in Michigan these last several years, they were in the NFL, they'd be a consistent playoff team. They'd be like the Minnesota Vikings or something. Now they wouldn't win Super Bowls, but I think he'd be viewed as like, he's just doing a really good job. But like you said, in college, there's little margin for error. And two, you got to score points, guy. And think about the last couple of Ohio State games. Ohio State does a great job, and I think Penn State is probably the poor man's version of this. Like, ideally, they want to have dudes everywhere on defense that are NFL guys. But we don't mind getting into situations where, we'll win a game 40-30, right? And you would say Michigan, we all watch them. Once it gets above like 25, it feels like it's really difficult, unless they're kind of running it up on a team. Like, they're in just a legit game. They got to win the game usually by their defense.
Yes.
And Dan Brown kind of taking fucking over because they don't ever feel potent on offense, guy.
Don Brown.
Don Brown, excuse me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, you think about Alabama lost 2 games last year. You know how many points they scored in those 2 losses? 41 and 45.
Well, aren't they a great example? How they were built. Jim Harbaugh in Nick Saban's early tenure with Alabama has wet dreams thinking of playing football like that.
Yeah.
Those days are kind of over.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's accepted it.
And Saban just, okay, where's our next Tua? Yeah, give me 7 Amari Coopers. Like, that's just – now, that doesn't mean he doesn't still, put a huge emphasis on defense. It doesn't mean he still doesn't coach the defense hard. It doesn't mean they don't aspire to have shutouts. But he also knows, we plan on scoring 40-plus a game.
Yeah.
And, even in our losses, you ain't shutting our ass out, right? It took us missing field goals, hitting the uprights against Auburn to lose that game. The LSU game, they got thoroughly outplayed, but why did they come storming back? Because at any moment, they could have like a 21-point quarter. Can Harbaugh's team against a good team have a 21-point quarter? You'd say no, not the way they've been built these last 5 years. Because why? Their quarterback is not potent enough.
His 5 years at Michigan, he's 47 and 18. And people say, oh, yeah, but he doesn't beat the good team. True. I mean, true. The teams that are his level or better, they just have not beaten. But before he showed up, from 2000 to 2014, Michigan was winning 63% of its games. Now they're winning 73% of their games. I remember, I've told this story to you a few times, or anyone that listens to our podcast has heard it. I was at a game, Brady Hoax, last year in 2014 at Michigan against Utah, and they're getting their ass kicked. And there's a lightning storm, and they clear the stadium. And so I go from the press box into an elevator, and I get in, and there's this woman. Everyone's soaked. She's in a wheelchair. She's got a blanket over her. She's old woman. And she's got her hand like this, and she's shaking her head. And I thought she was like upset because of the storm. And she says, "What has happened to my Wolverines?" Like, and that moment has stayed with me forever. It's just one of those things that you only see at big time college football programs. The delay was several hours. They finally started the game back up. Nobody was there, and Kyle Whittingham's Utah team kicked their ass. And that's where Michigan was, man. Like, they were in a really bad place, and he's pulled them out of it. And I still think maybe it's because we've seen it, we saw it, but I think you nailed it. In order for him to come all the way back, and it would feel if he'd get to a CFP like something, not that he need a redemption, but this is one of the big college football stories every year. I think it'd be one of the biggest stories we've seen in college football in a long time if Harbaugh can get this team to the CFP. But
do you think it's as simple as, because I do, the moment he finds his Baker Mayfield or Tua or Trevor Lawrence or Justin Herbert, he will be in the playoff mix? Because right now he's just really not.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but the problem at the moment is, and Urban's gone, so we think, is the door cracked open, or is Ryan Day just a great coach? Like, Ohio State's going to keep having great players. You have a top 15 recruiting class, they're going to have a top 5.
Well, they always will. But my point is, right now, we will view going in, even if Michigan's awesome next year and 11-0, Ohio State will be the favorite in that game unless it's just the wheels have fallen off. that I don't think we view them going into the season now anymore like we did his first couple of years. Like maybe this is the year
Yeah.
I think Harbaugh's somewhat of an afterthought, and a major reason is like, well, they're just not going to be able to score enough points, not going to be potent enough on offense. And to me, it's pretty clear. Like Lincoln Riley, it's easier in the Big 12, but they are so potent on offense that like it doesn't really. They have a shot every time they play someone. We even talked ourselves into, and it was wrong, but like. If they can just get hot and just control Burrow a little bit, they can maybe score with them. You can't even have those conversations with Harbaugh. And it'd be like saying you don't shoot threes in the NBA today, or you don't try to hit home runs in baseball. Like it's clear what you have to do. And I'm all for pivoting, right? Not doing the group think, but this is not arguable right now with college football. They already have the basis of they're getting top-end defensive guys, Harbaugh's style of being tough guys. Like, they have some built-in stuff that's going to help them. Got to find the quarterback guy. They have to. It's just, if they don't, then it's just going to be a lot of Haberman saying, 9 wins is better than it was with Brady Hoke and Rich Rodriguez.
And that doesn't last too long. Or
no,
at least that has an expiration date.
Well, doesn't it already feel like it's kind of fizzling out, like that take? Yeah. Which I think I have it basically too, but it's harder to say it every year. Yeah. It's like, well, 9 wins, but hey, listen, they get to play LSU next year in the bowl game, and then LSU kicks their ass. Well, it's like, oh my God.
I understand if I stood up on a stage in Ann Arbor and said that, you'd throw shit at me, and I understand why.
Well, and I think last year's bowl game, okay, we got our butts kicked again by Ohio State. Tua's not even there. Can we just kind of keep our head up high and just have a decent showing? And it's like, Judy, Ruggs, Waddle. It's like, whoop, whoop, whoop. It's like, oh, where's Tua? I don't know. This Mac Jones guy, whoop, 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 whoop. It's like, geez Louise.
All right, let us know. How do you judge Harbaugh's tenure so far, and what does he need to do to solidify his place in the future? Down in the comments below.
Like the video.